Froilan, a reserved yet brilliant engineer, was known for his unparalleled technical expertise, but overlooked by most due to his humble demeanor. His dream was to innovate technology that would make a lasting impact on the world, but for now, he worked tirelessly in his role at a well-established engineering firm, focusing on perfecting his craft. On an ordinary Monday morning, his life took a surprising turn. Enter Yette, a strikingly confident and ambitious woman recently hired to lead the firm's innovation department. Yette's entrance into the office was nothing short of dramatic. Her bold personality and commanding presence instantly caught everyone's attention, including Froilan's. Their first meeting wasn't pleasant. During a project kickoff meeting, Froilan presented his meticulously detailed plan, only for Yette to challenge his ideas, suggesting a more daring approach that Froilan found reckless. The two exchanged sharp remarks, and their colleagues watched the clash with bated breath. While Froilan believed in precision and caution, Yette's philosophy was about taking risks and thinking outside the box. The tension between them was palpable, but beneath the surface, there was a spark, a recognition of each other's intellect that neither would admit. Assigned as co-leads on a high-profile project, Froilan and Yette quickly became rivals. The project, aimed at developing cutting-edge renewable energy technology, was the company's most ambitious undertaking yet. Froilan focused on the technical aspects, ensuring every calculation and design was flawless. Yette, on the other hand, prioritized bold innovations and securing stakeholder buy-in with her persuasive communication skills. Their disagreements were constant. Froilan accused Yette of being reckless, while Yette called him overly cautious. Their clashes often disrupted team meetings, but their combined brilliance also yielded remarkable progress. The team secretly admired how their opposing styles seemed to push each other toward greater excellence, even if it came with heated arguments. One evening, after a particularly intense debate, Froilan found himself reflecting on Yette's perspective. Despite her infuriatingly bold approach, he couldn't deny that her ideas had merit. Yette, on the other hand, began to see Froilan's dedication and attention to detail as a strength rather than an obstacle. Unbeknownst to them, their rivalry was slowly giving way to mutual respect. The turning point came during the testing phase of their project. A critical error in the prototype design, which had gone unnoticed, caused a malfunction that threatened to derail their progress. The team was in disarray, and the project's stakeholders demanded immediate answers. While Froilan took responsibility for the technical error, Yette surprised everyone by stepping in to defend him, arguing that the failure was a team issue and not Froilan's alone. Her support shocked Froilan, as he had expected her to use the situation to discredit him. Determined to fix the problem, Froilan and Yette worked late into the night, reviewing every detail of the design and brainstorming solutions. For the first time, they collaborated without their usual friction. Froilan appreciated Yette's quick thinking and creative problem-solving, while Yette admired Froilan's resilience and ability to remain calm under pressure. By sunrise, they had not only resolved the issue but also developed a stronger prototype. The success brought the team closer, and Froilan and Yette shared a rare moment of camaraderie. Yette jokingly admitted that she might have underestimated Froilan, and he responded with a rare smile, hinting that perhaps they weren't so different after all. The shared setback marked the beginning of a tentative truce, as both started to see each other in a new light. With the project crisis resolved, Froilan and Yette's dynamic shifted. Though still prone to disagreements, they began to approach their collaboration with a newfound respect. Their tentative truce caught the attention of their colleagues, who noticed how their contrasting skills complemented one another. During a brainstorming session, Yette proposed an ambitious addition to the project, a feature that would make their renewable energy system not just functional but revolutionary. While Froilan initially hesitated, concerned about the time constraints and potential risks, Yette's passionate arguments convinced him to take the leap. As they worked late into the night refining the design, Yette opened up about her motivations. She shared how her upbringing in a struggling household fueled her ambition to succeed. She wanted to create something that would make her proud and prove her worth. Froilan, in turn, revealed his dream of building a legacy through innovation, one that would benefit society for generations to come. Their candid conversation deepened their bond, though neither dared to admit the growing admiration they felt for each other. Despite their progress, Froilan and Yette's relationship was tested once more when a new problem arose. A rumor began circulating in the office that Yette was using her charm to manipulate Froilan into agreeing with her ideas. The rumor spread like wildfire, fueled by jealousy and envy from their colleagues. Froilan, who had always prided himself on his integrity, was deeply hurt by the implication that he was being influenced. When he confronted Yette about the rumor, she was equally shocked and furious. She denied the accusations vehemently, but Froilan's doubts lingered. Their partnership grew strained as Froilan became more guarded, questioning Yette's motives at every turn. Yette, hurt by Froilan's lack of trust, threw herself into her work, determined to prove her worth without relying on him. The tension between them was palpable, and their once promising collaboration seemed on the verge of falling apart. The situation reached a boiling point when a rival team tried to sabotage their project by stealing their designs, Yette discovered the theft just in time and alerted Froilan. Despite their strained relationship, they worked together to secure their work and expose the culprits. In the aftermath, Froilan realized how wrong he had been to doubt Yette. He apologized sincerely, admitting that he had let his insecurities cloud his judgment. Yette, though still hurt, saw the remorse in his eyes and decided to forgive him. She understood that trust was something they both had to work on, and she valued their partnership too much to let it crumble. To rebuild their connection, Froilan suggested a symbolic gesture, a renewed commitment to the project with equal input and shared credit for their achievements. Touched by his sincerity, Yette agreed. Together, they presented their improved design to the company's executives, earning unanimous praise for their innovation and teamwork. Their success marked a turning point in their relationship. While they still had their differences, Froilan and Yette began to view each other as partners rather than rivals. Beneath the professional facade, a deeper connection was beginning to form, one that neither of them could ignore. After the success of their presentation, Froilan and Yette's project was fast-tracked for implementation. The company's executives, impressed by their teamwork and innovation, entrusted them with the responsibility of overseeing the project rollout. It was a monumental task, requiring seamless coordination, strategic planning, and intense problem-solving. While Froilan focused on perfecting the technical aspects, Yette took charge of stakeholder relations, presenting their work to investors and government representatives. Their distinct roles often brought them into conflict, but they now handled disagreements with a newfound maturity. Yette learned to appreciate Froilan's methodical nature, while Froilan saw the value in Yette's bold strategies. However, their progress was soon interrupted by an unexpected challenge. A major supplier suddenly pulled out, jeopardizing the entire project. Froilan and Yette were forced to scramble for alternatives, working around the clock to secure new partnerships and materials. The intense pressure tested their patience and resilience, but it also brought them closer. One late night, as they reviewed potential suppliers, Yette surprised Froilan with a heartfelt gesture. She handed him a coffee she had personally brewed, a small but meaningful act that hinted at her growing affection for him. Froilan, touched by her thoughtfulness, couldn't help but smile. For the first time, he began to see Yette not just as a colleague, but as someone he deeply admired. Despite their professional successes, personal tensions began to surface. Froilan's family, who valued humility and traditional values, expressed concerns about his growing closeness to Yette. They viewed her ambition and bold personality as a threat to Froilan's grounded nature. Meanwhile, Yette's past came back to haunt her when a former colleague from a previous job accused her of unethical practices. The accusation, though baseless, spread quickly within the company, causing many to question Yette's integrity. Froilan, initially hesitant to get involved, decided to stand by Yette. He believed in her honesty and was determined to clear her name. Together, they investigated the source of the rumors, uncovering evidence that proved Yette's innocence. The culprit, a jealous former rival, was exposed and reprimanded. This ordeal strengthened Froilan and Yette's bond, as Yette realized she could rely on Froilan in moments of vulnerability. Froilan, in turn, admired Yette's courage in the face of adversity. Their partnership was no longer just about work. It was about trust, loyalty, and mutual respect. With the project back on track, Froilan and Yette decided to take a rare evening off to celebrate their progress. They attended a company gala together, where their undeniable chemistry became the talk of the event. Colleagues and executives alike noticed how well they complemented each other, sparking rumors of a potential romance. During the gala, Yette confided in Froilan about her childhood struggles. Growing up in a broken home, she had learned to rely only on herself. Her ambition, she explained, was a way of proving her worth to the world. Froilan listened intently, moved by her vulnerability. In return, he shared his own fears of failure and his desire to make his late father proud through his work. The conversation brought them closer than ever, and for a brief moment, the tension between them melted away. As the night wore on, Froilan found himself gazing at Yette, realizing that she had become more than just a partner or rival. She was someone he cared for deeply. Yette, too, couldn't deny the growing feelings in her heart. But the question lingered. Could they balance their personal emotions with their professional ambitions? The answer would soon be tested as new challenges awaited them. The success of their project had thrust Froilan and Yette into the limelight. The company's executives saw them as the golden team, and they were tasked with presenting their groundbreaking technology at an international engineering conference. It was a high-stakes opportunity to showcase their work and elevate the firm's reputation. As they prepared for the event, Froilan and Yette's bond deepened further. Late nights at the office became routine, and their conversations often drifted from work to personal topics. Froilan found himself opening up to Yette in ways he never had with anyone else. Yette, in turn, discovered a softer, more introspective side to herself when she was with Froilan. However, the harmony was short-lived. During a rehearsal for their presentation, Froilan and Yette clashed over the delivery. Froilan wanted to focus on the technical intricacies, while Yette insisted on simplifying the message for a broader audience. Their disagreement escalated into a heated argument, with both accusing the other of undermining their contributions. The fight left a cloud over their partnership, and for the first time, Froilan and Yette avoided each other. Their colleagues, sensing the tension, worried that the duo's rift might jeopardize the upcoming conference. The tension between Froilan and Yette reached its peak during their flight to the conference venue. Seated side by side but barely speaking, they both felt the weight of unresolved emotions. Yette, frustrated by Froilan's rigidity, replayed their argument in her mind, while Froilan grappled with guilt for letting his pride get in the way. On the eve of their presentation, the unthinkable happened. A competitor revealed a similar technology at the conference, threatening to overshadow their work. The revelation sent shockwaves through the company, and the pressure on Froilan and Yette intensified. Faced with the crisis, they had no choice but to confront their differences. In a tense but honest conversation, Yette admitted that her bold approach was driven by fear of failure. Froilan, in turn, confessed that his need for control stemmed from a fear of being overshadowed. Their vulnerability broke down the walls between them, and they realized that their strengths were not opposing forces but complementary assets. Determined to salvage the situation, Froilan and Yette worked through the night to refine their presentation, incorporating new angles that highlighted their innovation's unique aspects. Their teamwork, fueled by mutual respect and trust, brought them closer than ever. The day of the presentation arrived, and Froilan and Yette stepped onto the stage with renewed confidence. Their delivery was seamless, blending Froilan's technical expertise with Yette's engaging communication skills. The audience was captivated, and the standing ovation they received was a testament to their success. Backstage, the CEO personally congratulated them, praising their ability to adapt under pressure. The project not only gained international recognition, but also secured new partnerships for the company. Froilan and Yette were hailed as heroes, their once contentious relationship now the foundation of their success. That evening, during the conference's closing gala, Froilan and Yette found themselves alone on a balcony overlooking the city lights. The air between them was charged with unspoken emotions. "You know," Froilan began, his voice uncharacteristically soft, "I don't think I could have done this without you." Yette turned to him, her usual bravado replaced by a rare vulnerability. I feel the same way. You've taught me so much, Froilan. For a moment, they simply looked at each other, the unspoken feelings between them, growing impossible to ignore. Yet neither made a move, knowing that crossing the line from professional to personal would change everything. As they returned to the gala, the spark between them lingered, leaving both to wonder what their future held, both as partners in work and, perhaps, something more. After the successful presentation at the conference, the company's admiration for Froilan and Yette reached new heights. They were offered leadership roles on even bigger projects, and their professional relationship continued to thrive. However, the personal tension between them grew more palpable. The unspoken connection that had developed between them was now undeniable, but both were cautious, unsure whether their deepening bond was purely professional or something more. One evening, after a long day of work, Froilan and Yette found themselves walking out of the office together. It had become a regular occurrence, something that started as a matter of convenience but had slowly evolved into a comfortable routine. Yette had always been outspoken, but tonight she was quieter than usual. Froilan, sensing something was off, broke the silence. "You've been distant lately," Froilan remarked, his voice tinged with concern. "Is everything okay?" Yette hesitated, unsure of how to express what had been bothering her. The truth was, she had been struggling with her feelings for him. Every day, it became harder to separate her professional admiration for Froilan from the undeniable attraction she felt toward him. She had never been one to rely on others, but with Froilan, she found herself drawn to him in ways she couldn't ignore. "I don't know," Yette confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I think I've been scared of what this is, what it could become." Froilan, for the first time in their relationship, felt a wave of vulnerability wash over him. He had always been in control, but with Yette, he found himself at a crossroads. "I'm scared too," he admitted. "I've been trying to push it aside, but I can't stop thinking about it. About us." The weight of their mutual admission hung in the air, and for a moment, neither knew how to proceed. But as the silence stretched on, Froilan reached for Yette's hand, the gesture small but significant. Yette looked at him, her heart racing, and for the first time, their professional facade crumbled entirely. "I don't want to keep pretending," Yette murmured, her voice barely audible over the sound of their footsteps. "I think I've fallen for you, Froilan." His grip on her hand tightened, and he stopped walking, turning her to face him. "Yette." Before he could say more, Yette leaned in, closing the distance between them. The kiss was soft but filled with all the unspoken emotions they had carried for so long: admiration, longing, and a deep connection that went beyond words. It was a moment that neither could take back, and in that instant, they both knew their relationship had crossed a new threshold. The morning after their kiss, Froilan and Yette woke up to a different reality. They had crossed a line, and neither knew how to proceed. Their professional relationship had been the foundation of their success, but now the dynamics had shifted. The question loomed large. Could they balance their newfound romantic feelings with the demands of their work? For days, they kept their distance, avoiding each other both in and out of the office. The tension was palpable, each wondering if the other regretted the moment they had shared. The silence between them was suffocating, and it began to affect their work. They started to disagree more often, their once perfect teamwork now plagued by unresolved emotions. At a crucial meeting with a client, the strain finally reached its breaking point. A simple miscommunication spiraled into an argument, and for the first time, they were openly hostile with each other in front of their colleagues. The room fell silent as the tension between Froilan and Yette became impossible to ignore. Later that day, as they sat in silence in their shared office, Froilan took a deep breath and spoke first. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice low and sincere. "I don't want us to fall apart because of this." Yette turned to him, her expression softening. "I don't either, but I can't pretend like nothing's changed." Froilan nodded, understanding her frustration. "Neither can I, but maybe we can figure this out together." And so, they made a pact. to address their feelings head-on, not just in their personal lives but in the context of their work. They agreed to take things slowly, allowing their relationship to evolve naturally without jeopardizing the professional success they had built together. Their decision wasn't easy, but it marked the beginning of a new chapter for them, one where they would face challenges together, both in and out of the office. Just as Froilan and Yette were beginning to navigate the complexities of their new relationship, another challenge emerged, one that tested their loyalty to each other and to the company. A rival engineering firm, aware of the groundbreaking technology Froilan and Yette had developed, launched a smear campaign designed to undermine their work. The competition accused them of using unethical practices to secure patents, and the media quickly picked up the story. The accusations were baseless, but the damage was done. The company's reputation was on the line, and Froilan and Yette were thrust into the spotlight. Their colleagues rallied behind them, but the pressure was overwhelming. As the investigation into the allegations progressed, Froilan and Yette were forced to confront not only the external threats, but also the insecurities that had been brewing between them. Yette, feeling the weight of the accusations, began to pull away, determined to protect herself emotionally. Froilan, on the other hand, tried to keep up appearances, pretending that everything was fine while internally questioning their future together. The strain reached a boiling point when an anonymous letter was sent to their company, further fueling the rumors. The letter was a direct attack on Yette, accusing her of being the mastermind behind the alleged unethical practices. Froilan, hurt and angry, confronted Yette, demanding to know if there was any truth to the allegations. Yette, visibly shaken, reassured him that she had nothing to hide. "You know me, Froilan," she said, her voice trembling. "I would never do anything to jeopardize our work or betray your trust." Despite her words, the doubt in Froilan's mind lingered, and the strain began to threaten their relationship. They both realized that the hardest test of all wasn't the external forces trying to tear them down, but the battle within themselves as they navigated their growing feelings for each other amid the chaos. As the investigation continued, Froilan and Yette were forced to confront not just their professional integrity, but also the fragile trust between them. Would their bond be strong enough to survive this storm, or would it crumble under the pressure? As the smear campaign escalated, Froilan and Yette were plunged into an emotional and professional crisis. The media storm raged on, with the rival engineering firm leaving no stone unturned in their quest to destroy their credibility. The pressure on both of them mounted, leaving Froilan feeling as though he was carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. The couple's relationship, which had been slowly blossoming, now faced its greatest test. The accusations had made the work environment increasingly hostile, and yet, ever the perfectionist, began to retreat into herself. The fear of being blamed for something she had no control over gnawed at her, leaving her withdrawn and quiet. Froilan, trying to be the supportive partner, struggled to find the right words to ease her pain. One late evening in the office, after a long day of dealing with legal teams and media inquiries, Yette broke down. She sat slumped in her chair, her usually strong posture defeated, her eyes puffy from lack of sleep. Froilan had watched her deteriorate over the past few days, but tonight, he couldn't ignore it any longer. He walked over and gently placed his hand on her shoulder. "Yette, talk to me. You don't have to face this alone." She turned to him, tears streaming down her face. "I'm scared, Froilan. I don't know how much longer I can keep pretending that everything's fine." Froilan knelt beside her, his heart aching for her. "You don't have to pretend. Not with me." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The weight of the situation was suffocating, but in that quiet moment, they found a sliver of solace in each other's presence. Froilan pulled her into an embrace, holding her tightly as if trying to shield her from the storm outside. "I'll stand by you." "Yette," Froilan whispered, his voice firm, "we'll get through this together." Yette closed her eyes, finding comfort in his words. She had been alone for so long, fighting her battles on her own, but for the first time in years, she felt like she had someone to lean on. The days following Yette's breakdown were a turning point for both her and Froilan. The couple, now united in their resolve, decided to face the accusations head-on. They knew that staying silent would only make matters worse. With the support of their colleagues, Froilan and Yette went on the offensive. They enlisted the help of a high-profile lawyer who specialized in corporate disputes and began gathering evidence to refute the claims against them. They were relentless in their pursuit of the truth, determined to prove their innocence and protect their hard-earned reputation. But beyond the legal battles, the emotional strain on both of them took its toll. Yette, once vibrant and confident, now found herself battling self-doubt. The constant media scrutiny and the pressure to clear her name weighed heavily on her. Froilan, though steadfast, could see the cracks forming in her facade. She was exhausted, physically, mentally, and emotionally. One evening, after a long day of meetings and paperwork, Froilan took Yette to a quiet cafe, far from the prying eyes of the world. They sat in a secluded corner, the soft hum of conversation and clinking cups providing a semblance of peace amidst the chaos. "You don't have to do this alone, Yette," Froilan said softly, his gaze tender. "Let me help you carry the weight." Yette looked at him, her eyes filled with both gratitude and vulnerability. "I don't know what I would do without you, Froilan. You've been my rock through all of this." Froilan reached across the table and took her hand, his thumb gently brushing her knuckles. "We're a team, Yette. I'll always be here for you, no matter what happens." For the first time in weeks, Yette smiled, a small but genuine smile. She realized that, in this battle, she had someone by her side who believed in her, who believed in them. Together, they faced the days ahead, ready to fight for their truth, their love, and their future. As the legal battle raged on, Froilan and Yette's relationship continued to deepen. They had both learned the hard way that trust was the foundation upon which their bond was built. What had begun as a professional partnership was now something much more profound. However, as the investigation neared its conclusion, another challenge presented itself. The rival firm's smear campaign was growing more personal. They began to target Froilan, insinuating that his involvement with Yette was a conflict of interest. Rumors swirled about their relationship, and the media began questioning whether their personal connection had compromised their professional integrity. Froilan felt the weight of the world on his shoulders as he tried to balance defending their work and protecting his relationship with Yette. The pressure was overwhelming, but through it all, Yette remained his unwavering support. She knew what it felt like to be scrutinized, and now it was her turn to stand by him, just as he had done for her. One evening, as they sat together in their office, the weight of the world outside seemed to vanish. They had been working late on finalizing their defense when Froilan paused, turning to Yette with a look of resolve. "Yette," he said, his voice steady, "I want you to know something. No matter what happens, I believe in us. I believe in our work, and I believe in our relationship." Yette looked up from the papers she had been reviewing, her gaze softening. "I feel the same way. We've come this far together, Froilan. We can't let anyone tear us apart." As they exchanged a look of mutual understanding, they both knew that the storm was far from over. But with trust as their guiding force, they would face whatever challenges came their way, together. The next day, their lawyer presented the irrefutable evidence that cleared their names. The rival firm's accusations were proven false, and the media backlash that had plagued them began to dissipate. Froilan and Yette had emerged victorious, not just in their professional lives, but in their personal journey as well. Their bond, forged in the fires of adversity, was stronger than ever. They had weathered the storm together, and now they were ready to build a future grounded in trust, love, and the shared goal of achieving greatness. As the dust settled from the legal battle, Froilan and Yette thought they could finally breathe easy. The rival engineering firm's smear campaign had been thwarted, and their reputation was restored. The truth had triumphed, but now there was a new complication, one that neither of them had anticipated. Froilan had always been a man of integrity, but there was something about his past that he had kept hidden from Yette. He had made decisions before their relationship that still haunted him. His previous romantic entanglements and some questionable business decisions had come back to bite him, and they were starting to surface. The media, hungry for any new angle on their story, began digging into Froilan's past, attempting to uncover any skeletons that could tarnish his newly reclaimed reputation. It was one particular evening when the first of these revelations came to light. Yette was reading an article online when she stumbled across an old news piece from years ago, a report that hinted at Froilan's involvement in a corporate scandal before he had joined the company. It wasn't clear what exactly had happened, but it raised questions. Conflicted, Yette confronted Froilan. "Is there something you haven't told me?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. Froilan was silent for a moment, his expression tense. He knew that this day would eventually come. Taking a deep breath, he turned to face her. "I didn't want to bring it up because I didn't want it to affect us," he admitted. "But I've made mistakes in the past, things I'm not proud of. But I'm not that man anymore." Yette felt a pang in her chest. She had always believed in Froilan's integrity, but this revelation shook her. "I need to understand, Froilan. What happened? What did you do?" Froilan hesitated, but then, seeing the vulnerability in Yette's eyes, he knew he had no choice but to be honest. He told her about a time before they met when he had been involved in a controversial deal, one that had cost the company a significant amount of money. He had been younger, more naive, and driven by ambition. However, the scandal had ultimately been cleared, and Froilan had worked hard to repair the damage it had caused. He had left that chapter of his life behind him, but the scars remained. "I didn't want you to know," Froilan continued, his voice low, "because I didn't want it to ruin what we have. But now, with everything that's happened, I think you deserve to know the truth." Yette was silent for a long moment, processing the information. Her heart ached, not because Froilan had been imperfect, but because he had kept something so important from her. The trust they had built was suddenly challenged, and she wasn't sure how to feel. "I appreciate you telling me," Yette finally said, her voice steady, "but this is a lot to process. I need some time to think." The days that followed Froilan's confession were difficult for both of them. The closeness they had shared was replaced by a tension that neither knew how to ease. Yette found herself questioning everything. Could she truly trust Froilan with her heart, knowing that he had hidden such a significant part of his past from her? And Froilan, feeling the weight of his past mistakes, feared that he had lost the one person who had made him feel whole again. Despite their emotional distance, they both continued to work together, their professional collaboration still strong. However, the unspoken rift between them loomed large, Yette became more distant, retreating into her work to avoid confronting her feelings. Froilan, for his part, tried to give her space, but he could see that the bond they had worked so hard to build was beginning to crack. One evening, as they were reviewing documents for an upcoming project, Froilan couldn't take it any longer. He placed the papers down and turned to Yette, his voice full of urgency. "Yette, I know I messed up by not telling you sooner, but I need you to know that I've changed. I'm not the man I was before. I love you, and I want to build a future with you. But if we're going to make this work, I need you to trust me again." Yette looked at him, her eyes searching his face for sincerity. "It's not that simple, Froilan. You kept this from me for so long. How can I be sure that I'm not just another mistake in your life?" The words stung, but Froilan knew they were justified. "I understand why you're hurt," he said quietly, "but I've spent every day since we met proving to myself that I'm worthy of you. I'll do whatever it takes to show you that." For the first time in days, Yette softened. She had seen the effort Froilan had put into changing and growing, not just for himself but for them. Slowly, she reached for his hand, her fingers brushing his with tentative trust. "I want to believe you," she said softly, "but I need time." Froilan nodded, his heart heavy but hopeful. "Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere." As weeks passed, Froilan and Yette worked to rebuild their trust in one another. Their relationship was no longer just about passion and ambition. It had become about forgiveness, patience, and mutual respect. Though the past would never be completely erased, both of them were learning how to move forward, accepting each other's flaws and mistakes along the way. Yette, while still processing her emotions, started to see the man that Froilan had become. She saw the man who had devoted himself to his work, who had been unwavering in his commitment to both his career and her. He had proved his loyalty through his actions, and while it would take time to fully heal, Yette knew that he was worth the effort. One afternoon, as they walked through the company's headquarters together, Yette stopped and turned to Froilan. "I've been thinking a lot about everything that's happened," she said quietly, "and I realize now that you're right. You've changed. You've done everything you can to show me that you're not the same person." Froilan looked at her, his heart racing. "Does that mean?" Yette smiled softly, the first genuine smile he had seen in weeks. "It means that I'm ready to try again, to rebuild what we had. But this time, we do it with honesty and trust." Froilan's heart soared. He stepped forward and took her hand in his. "I promise you, Yette, I'll never hide anything from you again." And so, they began anew. Their relationship, though scarred by the past, was now built on a foundation of trust, understanding, and love. They knew the road ahead would not be easy, but they also knew that as long as they faced it together, they could overcome anything. The months following Yette's decision to give their relationship another chance were filled with a sense of renewal. Though their past had been filled with turbulence and secrets, Froilan and Yette were slowly carving out a future based on the lessons they had learned. Their bond, once fractured, was now beginning to heal. Froilan worked tirelessly to show Yette that he was worthy of her trust. He opened up more about his past mistakes, sharing the moments in his life where he had faltered, not as an excuse, but as a testament to how far he had come. Yette, in turn, softened. The walls she had built around herself began to come down as she witnessed Froilan's actions aligning with his words. One of the things that strengthened their relationship was their shared commitment to their professional lives. As the lead engineers of a major project, they had to work even more closely together. The project was not only crucial for the company's future, but also for their personal growth. Yette had once feared that their romance would interfere with their work, but now, she saw that their partnership in the office was a reflection of the trust they were building in their personal lives. As they navigated the complexities of their relationship and professional responsibilities, they found solace in their shared moments of quiet. Whether it was working late in the office, taking walks together, or simply enjoying a quiet dinner at home, they learned to cherish these moments that had once seemed insignificant. They had become a true team, united in both love and ambition. Yet, even as things seemed to be falling into place, life had a way of throwing unexpected challenges their way. The engineering project they had been working on encountered a major setback. Despite their meticulous planning, unforeseen complications threatened to derail everything they had worked for. Tensions ran high as deadlines loomed, and the stress began to take a toll on their already fragile emotions. One evening, as they reviewed the latest project update, Yette slammed her fist on the table in frustration. "This is impossible. We've been working so hard, and it still feels like everything is falling apart." Froilan, ever the calm presence, stood up and walked over to her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "I know it's tough, Yette, but we can't give up now. We've come so far, and we're not going to let one setback define us." Yette met his gaze, her eyes filled with tears of frustration. "I'm scared, Froilan. What if we can't fix this? What if everything we've done, everything we've built, just falls apart?" Froilan gently cupped her face in his hands, wiping away her tears. "No matter what happens, we'll face it together. We've already been through so much. We can handle this too." Yet, looking into his eyes, found the strength to believe in him and in them once again. "Okay," she said, her voice trembling but resolute. "Together." And so, they threw themselves into the problem, working long hours to find a solution. Their determination and teamwork paid off. By the time the project deadline arrived, they had not only salvaged the situation but had exceeded all expectations, delivering a product that impressed even the most skeptical of their colleagues. This victory, however small it seemed in the grand scheme of things, was a triumph for their relationship. They had faced a major challenge and emerged stronger, both as professionals and as partners. With the successful completion of the project, Froilan and Yette found themselves